Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me tonight, we have the regulars back. Jason is back along with Joe, and all of us are probably still stuff from Thanksgiving last Thursday. Guys, how are you doing tonight?
Full still.
Understandable. Joe, how about you?
Doing pretty good, man. Ready to get back into it.
I know, it's crazy. The season just ended. We're finally winding down, and yet free agency starting to wind up, and let's get ready for some craziness. Although I have to say it's been relatively tame so far, much tamer than I had been expecting it, just before December, but we'll see. Now that the pitchers are starting to go, it should start triggering everybody else to start moving. So, Joe, I know you've got a new beer tonight, so we'll let you go first tonight. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking, it's called Nan and Poppy's Lemon Shandy Kiss from Fegley's Brewworks from Pittston. Really unique can with the gear and the pipes on it. Really quite neat. Really tasty. It's up there with Line and Kugel for sure.
That's high praise.
It's really good.
I'll definitely have to check that out then.
I think. I got it at Jason, for your reference. I got it at Effort of Beverage. So
awesome. I'll have to swing out.
There you go.
And Jason, what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight, I decided to go with something a little lighter and a little crisper. Wasn't feeling the Cheerwine Ale tonight. So going with a Watermelon High Noon. It actually tastes almost like a little bit of a sour, so it's a good one for tonight.
Sour? You shouldn't be sour. You guys re-signed Aaron Nola. You should be pretty happy.
Oh, yeah, I am. But this is pretty darn tasty.
Yeah, those High Noons are dangerously delicious.
Yeah.
And for me tonight, guys, I'm trying something new. In the Samuel Adams holiday pack, they have a new one this year. The Samuel Adams OVP Oaked Vanilla Porter, and it's pretty tasty. Not going to lie. I'm definitely enjoying this one so far. Very smooth. And as you guys know,
that sounds really good for the cold spell that we're going through currently.
Oh yeah. I think the high tomorrow is going to be 35 degrees around here, so it's going to be frigid. And I took off tomorrow. Did not want to deal with that. All right, so let's roll into it, guys. The awards came out last week. We knew about Rookie of the Year Monday night because that came out Monday. Everything else came out afterwards. We'll start with the two big ones, and we'll also touch on the managers. But for the MVP award in the NL and the AL, both were as predicted. Actually, pretty much everything this year is as predicted. In the NL, it went to Ronald Acuna Jr., 8th Braves player to win it, joining Johnny Evers, Bob Elliott, Hank Aaron, Dale Murphy, Terry Pendleton, Chipper Jones, and Freddie Freeman. Only Aaron was younger than Acuna when he won his award. Acuna is the third Venezuelan-born player to win, joining Miguel Cabrera and Jose Altuve. Hey, 2 out of 3 on that list ain't bad. Led the NL in runs, hits, stolen bases, OBP, OPS, second in slugging and batting average, and the first player to ever go 40-70. Joe, how about the AL?
Yeah, no surprise here. Shohei Ohtani, the 7th Angel to win this award, the second AL MVP in the past 3 years, the first to be chosen unanimously twice. 29th player to win multiple MVP awards, possibly would be 3 straight, had Judge not broken the record last year. He led the AL in homers with 44, had himself a good year and could have had probably a better year if not for the elbow issues.
And the wild thing about Ohtani, getting to 10 WAR in only 135 games, nobody has ever done that before. That's incredible. This is the first time, guys, that both MVP winners were unanimous, and this is going all the way back to 1931, the first time they gave out the award. And a quote from Anthony Castrovince, he's an MLB.com reporter and also the author to A Fan's Guide to Baseball Analytics. There's never been a player like Ohtani, aka a unicorn, and there's never been a season like the one amassed by Acuna. And I think that, that was really the best way I've heard to describe, you have one of the best players to ever play. You have one of the best single seasons ever. And I know people are going to say, well, Acuna got the stolen bases because of the new rules. Well, here's the thing that I counter that with. Nobody else had more than 54 in the National League. So, well, yes, Acuna definitely benefited from the rules. You can't take that away when everybody else is playing by the same rule set and nobody was nearly as aggressive as he was stealing. So, yeah, I thought, with both Cy Young and MVP, I have no complaints this year. I think the voters nailed it for once with no argument. Shocking, I know.
Yeah, and we kind of saw this coming a while ago, even
Like
just by
August.
keeping track of like the betting odds and things like that. They were so ridiculous that Vegas was they very clearly knew what was going to happen too. So, yeah, especially since we're in MVP right now, Acuna and Ohtani, they were easily the clear choice. So, and it's very obvious that they were by the unanimous vote for both of them. So.
Yeah, I know with MVP in the NL, Mookie Betts was second unanimous. Freddie just edged out Matt Olson for third. I mean, that's wild that the guy who led all of majors in home runs ended up fourth in MVP vote. I mean, that's just how much of a walk-off this was for the two guys. I didn't check the voting in the AL, but I'm sure it was probably very similar. It wasn't even a contest chasing down Ohtani, so. All right, let's move on. Look at the Cy Youngs. Jason, why don't you go ahead? You've been I'm sorry, I have NL first. Joe, go ahead with Mr. Snell.
Yeah, Blake Snell from the Padres. It's his second Cy Young award. He's the seventh player to do it in both leagues. His first one was in 2018 with the Rays. He's the fifth Padre to win it. And you can't argue with his numbers. He was 14-9, 2.25 ERA. A 6 BWAR and did everything that he needed to do. Only gave up 99 walks.
He had led the majors, but
yeah,
when you strike out 234, who cares?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So had himself a great year. It looked good. Looked like a good competition until about 2 weeks left, and then it just was like it was it. That was over.
Yeah.
He's put himself up. Yeah, he's put himself up for a big contract after that season.
Yeah, it kind of feels almost like a certain Baltimore Ravens quarterback winning a Super Bowl MVP, going and getting a huge contract, and hopefully Blake Snell's deal ends up better for whoever signs him than that previous contract did, because that crashed and burned pretty bad. And then Jason, you've been guessing Garrett Cole for 3 years, man, and you finally got it. Around at least one second place finish that was pretty close.
Yeah.
Right.
Third season is the charm finally for my pick of Garrett Cole to be the Cy Young winner. He did have a second place finish in these years, but he got the Cy Young this year. He's the first Yankee to win since Roger Clemens did it in 2001. And other things here, sixth Yankee overall, joining Bob Turley of 1958, Whitey Ford in 61, Sparky Lyle 77, and Ron, I'm going to butcher this last time. I'm going to pull an Andrew here probably. So Guidry, in 78. So they did have back-to-back Cy Young winners there. Impressive thing for Garrett Cole this year. He was a unanimous winner. He went 15-4 with a 2.63 ERA, 222 strikeouts in those 33 starts. He also had a .87 WHIP, and he held opponents to a 259 batting average. He did permit 2 runs or fewer in 26 of those 33 starts. So really impressive year for Garrett Cole, and a well-deserved and, from my guessing standpoint, overdue Cy Young award.
Can't argue with that. Can't argue with that at all. I knew how good of a season Garrett Cole was having because he was single-handedly keeping my pitching in fantasy baseball under control somewhat this year because, as you guys know, I drafted much heavier in bats, and it showed that my offense usually carried my team, not my pitching. but Garrett Cole was absolutely earned the top pitching pick that I made this year. I'm actually kind of surprised he fell as far to me as he did, if we're being honest. All right, looking at the other awards, again, we mentioned this last week. The rookies of the year went to Corbin Carroll in the NL, Gunnar Henderson in the AL. No surprises there. They were both unanimous selections. Manager of the year went to Skip Schumacher for the rather remarkable turnaround he did with the Marlins this past season. And then to the AL with Brandon Hyde of the Orioles. Again, another great turnaround from Brandon Hyde. But just where the Orioles have come in the last 2 years is nothing short of remarkable. Hopefully they make a bigger step next year and make it to the ALCS or even beyond that. They definitely have the roster to do it with all those young guys coming up. That Baltimore is going to be good for quite a number of years, if I had to guess. So, all right, guys, before we jump into free agency stuff, we just passed Thanksgiving, which is just such a wonderful holiday. I wanted us to share our favorite foods, main dish, side dish, and dessert. Jason, you want to go first?
Sure. So main dish, I got to go with the classic turkey. And my sister-in-law does a really good job of roasting the turkey. I also really enjoy a deep fried turkey. Just that nice crispy skin on the outside, yet juicy on the inside. Absolutely fantastic. For my side, I just kind of want to say yes, because the sides to me are kind of the best part of the meal. Whether you have your mashed potatoes, your sweet potatoes. I made my Brussels sprouts this year, which turned out fantastic. Your stuffing or dressing, depending on whatever you want to call it, your filling. I will probably go with my mom's candied sweet potatoes. They're probably my favorite side dish. Tons of butter and brown sugar, and they are delicious. And then for dessert, I'm not really much of a pie person, so I'm going to go with the spice cake that Karen has made for a few years now. So Karen's spice cake for my dessert.
I love pie, but I'm not going to lie. Spice cake sounds really good too.
She made the spice cake and then she made her own cream cheese icing. It's really good. Really good on a spice cake.
Yum. And as far as butter goes, I mean, that's just a given. I think we go through like 2 pounds of butter on Thanksgiving. So, Joe, how about you?
Look, Maine is turkey, obviously. That's an easy answer there. I think the sides, I like a good mashed potato, but I mean, like you said, yes, most of it's pretty good. But yeah, I'm pretty basic. Mashed potatoes, corn, the gravy flowing down, all that fun stuff. And I think on the dessert front, two of my mom's probably best. The cherry pie, which is just phenomenal. Love it. It's my favorite. And then my mom makes a mean pumpkin roll this time of year, which is just excellent. So
pumpkin roll, nice.
Pumpkin roll is a very solid dessert.
Yeah, can never
and
go
breakfast
wrong with and lunch and dinner as well.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, this pumpkin gets so overdone this time of year, with the 4,000 pumpkin beers, the vast majority of which I actually like. But pumpkin roll is a staple that will never go away. And I could eat 1,000 pumpkin rolls. It's so damn good. All right, for me, so Maine, yes, turkey, obviously. We are not one of those weird families that does something that's not turkey on Thanksgiving. I will admit, I've never had deep fried turkey. I would love to try it. I don't know anybody who is insane enough to try and deep fry a turkey at their house and let me over to try it yet. So I would love to try it sometime, but it's not happening at my house. We have gas heat and gas stove, and I'm too many gas lines running into my house for me to feel completely comfortable deep frying a turkey nearby it. Just saying. And too much traffic in the alley on Thanksgiving too. For the sides, a couple I love all the sides. A couple I want I want to give shout outs to this year. Two of them go to my wife. She made a wonderful mac and cheese, especially the one she made to go up to my parents' house with the Gouda and the cheddar. Oh my God, what a heavenly combination with a ton of garlic and everything else in there. So good. And then she also made it. She makes the corn with honey and cream and parsley, and oh my God, it's so good, absolutely delicious. And one shout out, actually two shout outs to my dad. The sausage chestnut filling, which is absolutely delicious, and his Brussels sprouts that he cooks in enough heavy cream and prosciutto to effectively remove any possible nutritional goodness from them, as they should be. And for dessert, it will always be my mother's apple pie, and she always bakes me one to take home, which that will be my breakfast tomorrow morning when I am not at work. I can tell you that right now.
Nice.
And one more question I have for you guys. Cranberries, the jiggly jello out of the can or real cranberries?
If it is not the gelled canned cranberry where you can see the lines and the indentation on the top, then I don't want your cranberry sauce. The jellied cranberry is the only way to go.
What about you, Joe?
No, the real thing, man.
I got to take Joe's side on this one, Jason. The real thing is way better than the jello every time.
Nope. Give me the jellied. Give me the jellied. You can keep your real stuff. The jellied you can just spread across everything, like all across your stuffing.
Real stuff across too. What are you talking about?
Nah, too chunky and just I don't want a cranberry chutney. I want that gelatin.
Put it in a food processor and you can get it as smoothed out as you want. What?
Give me that jelly goodness all the time.
Dude, I think you just went more basic than Joe.
If your cranberry sauce doesn't move like Jell-O, it's not cranberry sauce.
It most definitely isn't. It tastes better too. All right, let's move it on to free agency. Jason, I'll let you lead it off as your team is the recipient of, I would say, by far the biggest signing so far.
Yeah, and it was the first big signing of the entire free agent class here. But Aaron Nola is back in Philadelphia, a 7-year, $172 million contract with the Phillies. By the time that this contract is done, he'll be 37 and will be completing his 16th season with the ball club. He is a homegrown player here. And then, as long as he pitches in one game each of the next couple seasons, he will only trail Mike Schmidt for most seasons played in Philadelphia. So basically, he's looking to be a lifelong Philly. He did not get the deal that he was trying to get in spring training. He was looking for $200 to $300 million, which we all kind of knew, like, he's not going to get that. He's not worth that. And especially with the season that he had in the regular season, he kind of worked his way out of that contract. But this is still going to be the largest pitching contract in Philly's history. He kind of gave them a hometown team discount. The Dodgers and the Braves both did offer higher annual value, but they went fewer years than the Phillies did. The Dodgers and the Braves both went 5 years. Dodgers went $165 million, Braves $162 million. My thoughts on this contract are it's good for both sides. It's overall, I think it's fairly well balanced. Yes, it's a lot of years, but it's also less money. So the annual average value, I believe, came out to like 24 million, something like that. And that is still less than the annual value that Taijuan Walker is getting for the Phillies. So overall, I like the contract. I know that, like, throughout the year I say no, I'm fine with Aaron Nola leaving. And I was depending on what that contract would be. This being a fairly team-friendly deal. Welcome back, Knowles. Hopefully you can help the team get it done and get over that hump and win the World Series again.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised that Andopoulos wasn't willing to move to more years on a pitcher who is a little bit older. Just looking at Nola being 37 by the time the deal is done. The Braves working with Charlie Morton, who is going to be 40 this year. I know that's kind of made them a little gun shy towards older pitcher contracts, because I still think $20 million for Morton this upcoming season is a little bit nuts. But it's not a bad deal. I wasn't surprised to see that the Dodgers had actually outbid the Braves in AAV. I think the biggest advantage Atlanta thought they had was the fact that they had Rick Kranitz, who Nola pitched very well for in his years when he was with Philadelphia. But I'm really not surprised to see him go back to Philly. I don't think he was too seriously looking at other offers. He's as synonymous with Philadelphia this year as at this point in time is pretty much anybody on that team. So
yeah, he clearly wanted to be a career Philly if possible. And his press conference when they announced the contract was pretty much in line with that.
Yep. Looks like Ron's watching from home with us, some popcorn, and also some wrestling in the background. Ron, enjoy the show. All right, and then
Ron,
the Cardinals.
Is that wrestling on TV, or are you like in your backyard?
It could also be with the cat too. I mean, his cat's
That's
big
true.
enough. The cat would probably give him a pretty good fight. So the Cardinals decided to fix the problem that everybody knew that they had last year, even before last season, but decided to just not do anything about it last year by addressing their god-awful starting pitching. They got arguably the second best pitcher available, possibly third. Ron said TV, too cold for the backyard. Fair enough.
Yeah, you can't dig out that trench when it's that cold out.
True. Sonny Gray, second or third best pitcher, depending on where you put Blake Snell in the pecking order of things. But the Cardinals, everybody is 34 and older. So Sonny Gray's 34, 3 years, $75 million with a club option for 27. Now let's keep in mind he did receive and turn down a qualifying offer. So Minnesota will get a compensatory pick in 2024 between the first round and competitive balance round A. And St. Louis will lose its second highest 2024 pick, as well as $500,000 in international bonus pool money. It would be $1 million, but they did not exceed the CBT last year. And actually, I would not be surprised now that I look at that, if that's another reason why Atlanta might have backed off on both Nola and Gray a little bit, because they would be down $1 million in international pool money. So, that's something that they have to look at with our farm system being where it is right now. They also picked up Lance Lynn, 1 year, $11 million. Lynn will be 36 this year. He does have performance bonuses that can bring the value up to $14 million, option for 25 that can make the deal up to $25 million. Kyle Gibson will be 36, a 1 year deal. The terms weren't known that I could find. Club option for 25 for him as well. So, I mean, Joe, you and I were talking about this a little bit before we went on the air tonight. The Cardinals are finally doing what everybody in baseball knew what they needed to do before last year.
Yeah, I mean, everybody but the Cardinals organization knew what they had to do last year, and they didn't do it. So I do think that this is a good pickup for them, the combination of guys, plus the two that they already have in-house. I do think that there's some good potential here. We'll see what they do the rest of the offseason with other things that they need to fill up. But making a genuine effort to go after some guys who are good enough to get the job done, to me. Sonny Gray had an excellent year this year.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
I think that the Sonny Gray signing was good for the Cardinals. I still think that they're not going to be strong as a starting pitching staff. I mean, they're also hoping to get some magic from Kyle Gibson that the Orioles had a little bit of, but definitely not much. Their average age for the pitching rotation is going to be 35 years old. That's not great. So, yeah, I don't know that they did better than they did last year, but I still don't think that they are where they need to be.
Two thoughts I had. Number one, Gibson's going to be the number 3. There's no way, unless there's injuries, that he goes ahead of either Gray or Lynn. And I think as a 3-4 guy, I think he's fine as a 3-4 guy. When you shoehorn him in as an ace, that's where you're going to run into trouble. Number 2, I don't think the Cardinals are done. I think they're going to pick up. I think once the big headline guys are gone and we're looking at the B and C level starters, I think the Cardinals are going to grab 1 or 2 of those guys. So that way they, 1, increase the depth, but 2, to have a little bit more of a competition in spring training, along with the guys they'll call up from the farm system for spring training. I don't think that this is going to be the final rotation for the Cardinals. These 3 guys plus the 2 that are remaining. As questionable decisions as the Cardinals made last year, I don't see them as a franchise continuing to be that questionable when that's just not their MO when you look at the history of that franchise.
Well, and that's where I'm also not entirely sold that they aren't done, because they do not have a history of spending a lot in free agency. It's very possible that this is what they're anticipating going with, but I think if they do anything else, I think there's also potential for a trade of some kind. But the Cardinals have not been known for their spending.
No, that's true, because they value the draft picks and they value building from within more than they value bringing outside help. That's true.
Right.
Joe, any other thoughts? You know more about the Cardinals than the 2 of us because you have to deal with them year in and year out as a division rival.
Yeah, look, I don't know that their issues were entirely talent based. Some of that had contributed quite a bit to it, but I just don't know that Marmol's the answer there, and I just don't know that they really benefit from him being in charge of this whole damn thing. To be honest with you, they clearly don't. I mean, I don't think this was Marmol's first year or second year, this past season, but Arenado was a completely different player all of a sudden, and that's not because of a lack of talent. It's probably because of a lack of give a shit, and I couldn't say I blamed him last year.
Yeah, this was Marmol's second season. Overall record of 164 and 160. Oof.
Yeah, they're not responding to that, and it's not working. It's pretty obvious to me. I mean, the fact that they were in the playoffs the one year and then didn't make it last year and had an awful season. I think you know enough. Like I understand you want to give people a little bit of leash as managers, but you know enough. You've seen enough already. To me, if I'm a Cardinal owner, I'm hiring somebody today. I don't know. This is stupid.
Yeah, I did just send our buddy Zach, the Cardinals fan, a message just to kind of get his thoughts on the rotation, if he thinks that they'll be done, just kind of overall thoughts on it. So I'll let you know if he touches base with me during this episode.
Sounds good. And I hope his first words are, "Oh God, I hope not," because they definitely do need more help than what they picked up. And we had one trade come down that I thought was really kind of curious, to be honest. Jason?
Yeah. So the Diamondbacks, they got a Eugenio Suarez from the Mariners for prospects, and that's a heck of a pickup for the Diamondbacks. You know, they're going to be the defending National League champs this next season, so people are going to be coming for them. They have to get better, and they absolutely did. So I don't have the actual prospects off the top of my head here, but yeah, not quite sure what's going on with the Mariners, that they felt that Suarez was one that they could just give up, but who knows?
Yeah, give me a second here. I've got the deal popping up. It looks like Zavala and Vargas were the two biggest names that went back. Yeah, backup catchers Sebi Zavala and Carlos Vargas, who does look like he will be a good reliever. Yeah, the only thing I can think is that the Mariners did this as a salary dump because Suarez was slated to earn 11.2 million this upcoming season. That's why. Okay. One trade I missed. The Mariners also picked up Luis Urias from the Red Sox as well. And he will likely be the everyday third baseman. Okay. All right.
I missed that trade
makes more
too.
sense. Okay.
Yeah, definitely missed that one.
All right. So the deal makes a little more sense now. Obvious opening, so yeah, you don't want to have two starting third basemen and not enough places to play them, so makes sense. One other signing I wanted to mention, I forgot to put it on the sheet, but I threw it on quick, guys. Atlanta signed Reynaldo Lopez, 3 years, $30 million. I thought that was a great deal. Actually, he's been a very, very good reliever for the White Sox. He has starting experience in the past. Atlanta's planning on stretching him out during spring training. So if they need him to be a starter, he could be a starter. If they need him to be a long reliever, he needs to be a setup man, he's there for that. There is a club option for 2027 for $8 million. And Lopez, like I said, good year last year, 3.27 ERA, a 29.9% strikeout rate. Opponent batting average of 188 and a 545 OPS against his fastball last year. And his fastball averaged of 98.2, which is 96th percentile in baseball. So I really like that deal. I think the money is absolutely right. So definitely no complaints about that whatsoever. And I know, Jason, if I remember right, he was one guy you actually were hoping Philly was going to try and target for the bullpen too.
If they were not going to go heavily for Josh Hader, I was hoping that they would go for Reynaldo Lopez because he looked like he would be a really good addition to that bullpen. Certainly better than he who will not be named as far as late inning guys goes. But yeah.
Yeah, because Philly doesn't have enough guys that can throw 98 plus right now.
I don't know if you're serious or not.
No, I'm being sarcastic. That's one thing I actually like about Philly. The back end of Philly's bullpen is all of the high velocity arms they have.
Yeah.
I also think Alvarado.
Because I was going to say, have you not seen Jose Alvarado and Sir Anthony Dominguez?
I actually think Alvarado should be your closer.
I think he will end up being the closer overall, especially if they don't go for Hader, but maybe they go for additional setup help there and bump him down to the 9th inning there. So
I think that makes the most sense because for the cost of Hader, you can get 2 setup guys.
Right. Before we move on, Zach did get back in touch with me here. So his thoughts on the Cards rotation, if they're done, I think they've done enough to be in the mix. They're likely done with the rotation unless they can swing a trade. The rumor is they've actually put Matz on the block. So that would be very interesting to see if Matz truly is available, what happens there.
And Matz is a lefty, right? So, yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on because you don't see lefty arms being made available like that, especially established left-handed starters. So definitely something to keep an eye on in St. Louis.
Yeah.
All right. So players that are still available. Just one note with the Japanese players. When they open their negotiation window, they have 45 days to negotiate and sign a deal with an MLB team. So a lot of these guys, the negotiation period tends to draw out a little bit longer than you see of typical free agents. Just one thing to remember. All right. So first off, obviously, we have the unicorn, the GOAT, Mr. Shohei Ohtani, who has been linked to virtually every team in baseball, even though it is not likely he will sign with most of them. I know some of the biggest teams we've seen, both of the LA teams, obviously, New York, both of the New York teams, because God knows neither of those teams are afraid to splash some money around. I've seen Atlanta as an outside shot, because he's looking for that culture of winning. Atlanta's got the young talent locked up. I know Philadelphia is an outside shot. To be honest, I've even seen San Francisco as having an outside shot. So really, Shohei, I think it's just sit back, relax, and watch the ride, because it could.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be almost anywhere outside of the teams that ended up under 500 last year.
I've seen the Cubs as being talked about significantly.
Especially Seiya Suzuki too.
I'll say outside of the Angels and the Dodgers, Chicago is the one that I'm seeing the most. The Mets, I don't think he's going to go to the Mets, especially considering what they said last year, in that they're not anticipating on competing until 2025, 2026. Shohei's not going to want to go there for a rebuild. So I don't see him going to the Mets, because if you're planning on spending all that money, why would you have traded the players that you were trying to build around before? So the Mets don't make sense at all to me.
Conversely, maybe the Mets have learned that you don't use a pair of 40-year-old aces as your aces for your staff. Just saying.
I believe those aces did get a World Series ring, though, this year.
Yeah, but they had to be traded there to make it happen.
Doesn't matter how you get there.
No, that's true.
Yep.
So the three players that are being posted from Japan, Yoshinobu Yamamoto is the biggest name. Shota Imagana and Naoki Iwasawa. I am sorry, I probably butchered those horribly. I apologize. Those are the three pitchers that are being posted. I believe was it? I think it was Imanaga is also. He's not quite as highly touted as Yamamoto is, but he's not really that far behind. It's not quite a 1A, 1B situation, but it's pretty close to that. So those are the three guys coming over from Japan. You also have Blake Snell, and Snell's going to be tied to pretty much every contender that needs pitching. So I've heard Philly wants to try and make a big three. I'm sure Atlanta's going to be tied to him, despite the fact that he's going to cost an arm and a leg and ridiculous amount of money there. I'm sure the Dodgers are being tied into that, because let's face it, the Dodgers need starting pitching like almost nobody else. The fact that they tried to run Clayton Kershaw and 4 rookies in the playoffs last year should tell you how desperately they need pitching. Snell is going to be the biggest prize right now outside of Yamamoto. Rhys Hoskins. I've seen. I think I've seen the Cubbies actually being rumored with Rhys, Joe. All right, what do you think about Rhys Hoskins joining the Cubs? Great clubhouse guy.
I don't hate it at all, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot more upside to this move than there was to picking up Mancini and Hosmer last winter. A lot more performance upside, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
On top of the clubhouse guy. There's a lot of unknown with the Cubs. I wouldn't be disappointed if they got him. I just don't know how it all fits together.
I'll say this: make sure it's a 2-year deal. 2-year deal, and tack on a club option for 3. Next year will probably not be a great year coming off an ACL. We saw it with Acuna 2 years ago, and then he came right back just fine last year. It's just the nature of ACL injuries. You're good to play, but the power is not completely back that first year.
Joe, just because I'm not entirely familiar with the Cubs roster, who's currently at first base and who's currently at DH?
I mean, Belly played a bunch of first base in the second half of the year.
Most likely, I'm assuming he would transition to the outfield, correct?
Belly would go back to center if they had an everyday first baseman. If Belly's still there, because Belly's not
Also true.
Yeah,
currently
he's
technically on
another
the
guy.
roster. And he's probably technically currently on the roster, but he's not under contract. So
Yeah.
No, he's not on the roster at all right now.
I don't know how that stuff works out. So
Yeah. So potentially you have that need at first base. Who was filling in as DH last year?
Morel was filling in a bunch at DH.
Okay.
They're talking about him taking some first base reps in winter ball too. So I don't really know what they're planning here.
So it's not like Reese going there doesn't make sense. It sounds like that he would fill a need. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I haven't really heard Reese being tied too many other places so far, surprisingly. I know Philly would probably not say no to him back, but now that Harper wants to stay at first base, there really isn't a spot because if he comes back, he has to DH, and that means Schwarber goes to left field, and that is probably the last thing anybody
No.
ever wants to see again. I mean, Schwarber is without a doubt the worst left fielder I have ever seen play the game. Please insert Jack Sparrow GIF, but you have heard of me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. As much as I would like to see Reese come back on like a team friendly deal, he's gone. There's sadly not a spot for him there.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Reese head back out to California. I know he's a California guy. Either, Dodgers, Padres, Giants. I think any of them would probably be happy to have a chance at signing him. Even the Angels might be a possibility out there as well. So, yeah, Ron is looks like Ron is lamenting the loss of Reese Hoskins in the comments here. I do get that. Reese was definitely a great clubhouse guy. If not, take away the fact that his defense was sometimes a little questionable. Great bat, great clubhouse guy. I get it, man. I lost Freddie a couple years ago. You hate losing those clubhouse leaders.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we even saw it just seeing the reaction when he came out to throw the first pitch in game 1 of the wild card series. Like knowing that was probably potentially the last time that you were going to see him out on that field was really something. And I think it would be a little easier for fans to say goodbye to him if he had gotten to play this year. It's the fact that there was no chance to really give him a send-off. There was just no opportunity for the fans to show their appreciation for all that he did for the club, because he came up in 2018, I believe it was, and he came up with some very, very bad rosters. He and Nola. So the fact that he was finally starting to enjoy success, and to not get to play at all this past season, that's just what kind of hurts the most.
2017, actually.
2017.
So even worse, because
Yeah.
that was not a good Phillies team that year.
No. So I mean, it's the fact that he didn't get a chance to play at all in his final season with the team that really just sucks.
Conversely, though, had he not gotten hurt, you never would have transitioned Harper to first base, and he would have been at DH last year all year probably, or most of the year. More time of Schwarber and left. You wouldn't have had the solid defense that you ended up having in the outfield had that not happened. I mean, I know you never want to see a guy get hurt. I don't care the sport. I don't care the player, but things kind of worked out pretty well, honestly.
They did. The Phils had a fantastic season. They had a really good playoff run. I think you probably would have ended up seeing some split time, with Reese and Bryce at first base and DH. You'll probably see them transitioning a little bit. And then you would potentially see when Schwarber was primarily ready for DH. It's possible they might have tested Harper in the outfield. I don't think they would have, but I do think they potentially would not have brought up Johan Rojas either. I think you potentially would still have seen Schwarber in left, which again, it all worked out. But it just definitely sucks that Reese did not get to see the field or play at all his final season with the team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so moving on down my list here, Justin Turner will be available. He's starting to verge towards more of a DH guy, but he can still play third every day. He's not a Gold Glover by any small stretch, but he's got a solid enough glove there. He's not going to hurt you too badly out there. He'll definitely get some suitors. Smart of him to take the 1-year deal last year and trust in himself. I mean, he hit 278, I believe, with Boston last year. So the bat's still there. You also have Jordan Montgomery, who's going to be, again, another one of the big name starters available. He's a guy I actually wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta looks into, because he's going to come at a lower asking price than Snell is going to, or Yamamoto will ask for. So I would not be surprised to see Atlanta tied in with Montgomery. Again, I say Atlanta, but insert all of the contenders that need starting pitching here as well. Josh Hader. Now he is by far the biggest reliever name that is out there. He watched Edwin Diaz get a $100+ million contract last year. Hader's going to be wanting $100 million plus this year. Joe, where are you thinking Hader's going to end up? Has there been any team that's been standing out to you more than any other?
No, and I mean, as a Cub fan, I don't want to. You don't want to pitch more than the 1 inning. Go screw yourself, man. I mean, you may have talked yourself out of a contract. Realistically,
yeah,
you're not going to get the same. You're not going to get Edwin Diaz money when you don't want to go out and pitch when it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, when the manager calls your name, you need to be ready to go.
Yeah.
And that definitely will probably hurt him with some money. Jason, what are you thinking?
Oh man, he can go a few different places. I'm trying to think of who all would need a closer. I know the Phillies jumps right to my forehead just because it's my team and I know their need. I don't know where I see him going. I haven't seen a lot of talk one way or another about him.
And I think the big problem with Hader is most of the contenders they're either set at closer or they're comfortable enough with what they have that they're not going to be willing to spend huge money on Josh Hader, because let's face it, he is going to take a ridiculous sum of money to come back. I don't see him going back to the Padres. They're going to rebuild. They're not going to pay what he wants. The Rangers wouldn't shock me. The Rangers could definitely use some more arms in the pen. Joe, I know you wouldn't like it, but the Cubs wouldn't shock me either.
No, it wouldn't shock me. I'm just not a huge fan of someone who's not willing to pitch when his number's called. And honestly, in Chicago, I think they're gonna do. They're probably going to ride Alzolay again because he was really, really good when he moved to the closer role last year. So I'm not too concerned about that spot in the bullpen, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, he's got a great arm. He's a great impact guy. Definitely a guy you don't mind having on the team. But Joe, you do bring up a good point. A guy that's not going to listen to his manager when he says get ready because it's more than 1 inning. That's a big problem for me.
So fun thing here. There are some fun betting things going on for some players and where they're going to end up. So now I'm just like, hey, who's the favorite to land them right now? The odds-on favorite currently is the Texas Rangers at plus 350, basically 22.2% chance that he'll sign with the Rangers, followed by the Yankees at plus 550 or 15.4%, the Dodgers, and then the Phillies for your top 4.
I love that the degenerates gambling have made free agency so interesting now. This is just kind of wonderful. Let's be real.
Yeah.
One re-signing that actually came out earlier today, I meant to put it on the sheet. Apologies that I forgot to. Jason Hayward's coming back to the Dodgers in a 1-year, $9 million deal. Hayward had a disappointing end with the Cubs, and Hayward had a good season last year. He had 15 home runs and 813 OPS, and he played pretty much the whole year. I don't think he got hurt at all last year. So I'm really happy to see Hayward earn his spot back. He played all 3 of the outfield positions. He also filled in for the Dodgers at first base when they needed that a couple times. The dude's always been great defensively, so I wasn't surprised to see that he could pick up an infield spot that quickly. But, as I watched the Jay Hay kid come up with the Braves. I loved him in Atlanta. I was sad when he left. I understand. I get it. Baseball is baseball. But he's a guy I've always loved to watch. Joe, I know the contract didn't work out for you guys, but without that speech in Game 7, that might not have happened. I mean,
all worth it, man. All worth it.
You got the ring. Who cares about all the after effects afterwards, right?
Well, and like I said earlier today when this was announced, like I'm genuinely happy for him that he's been able to have another year or two away from the nonsense in Chicago, because the nonsense, the stuff in Chicago can really just eat at you when it's happening on a daily basis like that. So I'm really glad that he was able to have some success here at the end.
Yeah, definitely. Another name to watch out for, Matt Chapman is also one of the higher available tiered guys in free agency. Matt Chapman's got a great bat and will never not have a great bat, so definitely one to keep an eye on as well. Guys, I think I pretty much hit a lot of the big names that are still available. Anybody you guys want to mention, or maybe free agents that are leaving your team that you'd either like to see come back, or that you'd like to see your team go after that might not be in the top tier?
I mean, I'd say, of the 2 that opted out from the Cubs, one of the 2 I'd love to have back, and that's Bellinger. Stroman, I could do without it, but he opted out too. So,
how about you, Jason?
Aside from a closer or back end of the rotation guy, I wouldn't mind seeing them go for some kind of starter, like a mid-range starter, like a 3 or a 4, just to get a little bit of depth there.
You can never have enough 3-4 guys in the roster,
right? Because I don't know what's going to happen with some of these other players. Because the other thing that I'm thinking of too is extend Zach Wheeler, maybe, because he'll be entering the final year of his contract.
I would be very surprised if Zach Wheeler will accept an extension. He took such a team-friendly deal to go to Philadelphia. I think he wants a chance, because that was totally a prove-it deal because of his injury history in New York. He wants to hit the market next fall.
And he's more than proven himself.
Yeah, no doubt. Right, Jason, think about this. Next year, potentially, you're seeing Max Fried and Zach Wheeler on the free agent market.
That's just weird.
Yeah. And we thought a lot of money was going to get thrown around this year. Think about how much money is going to get thrown around with the 2 of them, because I have a feeling Fried's going to do the same thing and say, no, I'm going to pitch out the rest of this contract, and I want to see where the market's going to lead me. Yeah, he's too close to the end to accept an extension. I've kind of resigned myself.
And barring some kind of injury that ends a season, you'd be silly to not see what the market is for you.
Yeah.
While also maintaining that, I'm not just going to accept any offer. I still want to go to a contender. So, I do think that Wheeler will hit the open market, but. Yeah. Again, we're talking wish list. So my wish would be to extend Wheeler, as unlikely as that may be. And I wouldn't mind seeing them try for an outfielder of some kind. I really like Johan Rojas. I like Christian Pache. Rojas and Pache both have the glove. Pache is starting to develop the bat. Rojas needs to develop the bat more. At, near the end of the season, it was very clear that he's not quite ready yet. He was kind of almost an automatic out in the postseason. But so I wouldn't mind seeing them go for some kind of outfield help, be it, sorry, Joe Bellinger, or there's a name on here. I know we've talked about this name without recording, but Trout does have potential to be moved. A lot of it's going to depend on what the Angels want, which most likely they're going to be asking for too much. So I don't see that he's going to be moved, but I think teams would be crazy for not inquiring and seeing what the cost would be. So I think there is potential. Again, it may not be likely, but we're talking wish list. I would like to see the Phillies get some kind of additional outfielder. Maybe that means trading Castellanos and prospects for a guy like Trout or something like that, but who knows?
Keep in mind, too, Mike Trout's got a no-trade clause, dude. He would have to waive that first.
You don't think he would waive it to come home to Philly to play for a team that will contend?
It's not impossible, but the Phillies would have to blow away the Angels with an offer first. The Phillies would have to be willing to take on that mammoth contract, along with the fact that Trout can't stay healthy anymore.
My guess is the Angels would be expected to eat a good chunk of that contract.
I don't know that they would,
but
this is not the Mets we're talking about.
And that's where the deal would probably fall apart. Yeah. But again, like, I'm not saying that this is what I'm expecting to happen. You're saying, what would you like to see your teams do? So that's all fair. I'm saying. And I think that you're also, yes, Trout has a no trade clause. He will 100% trade, waive his no trade clause if it means he gets to go to a contender, because we realize he has experienced the playoffs one season, which was a sweep that they were eliminated right away. And that's all that he's had. The guy is absolutely, I was going to say that the guy is absolutely hungry for, to be on a contender, but I don't know why he would have signed that big contract with the Angels if he wanted to compete a lot. But
money talks.
Oh, it sure does.
To bring up your point with Rojas, though, you're absolutely right about that bat. He hit 167 against the Marlins. He went 0 for 15 with a walk against the Braves, and he hit 136 against the Diamondbacks. So that's an overall average of .093. Granted, in the Atlanta series, he did redeem himself by spearing that absolute rocket Acuna hit into the power gap that, let's face it, no other outfielder on that roster would have had the jets to get over to that ball. And that saved that game, frankly. I knew the game was over after he made that.
His defense is not the question.
But yeah, his bat, that's .093 ain't gonna get it done.
But I do appreciate that he was, of all people, he was the one that had the playoff clinching base hit up the middle, the game that we were at against the Pirates to clinch the wild card. So
good for you. That's cool that you got to see that.
But yeah.
For me, Atlanta really doesn't have a ton of holes because they have like 3/4 of the roster signed for the next 3 to 10 years. Couple things I would like to see. They let Eddie Rosario go, so left field is open. I do not ever want to see Marcell Ozuna touch the outfield grass ever again. He can catch, unlike Kyle Schwarber. His problem is he can't throw anymore because he's had a couple shoulder injuries that have sapped his throwing abilities. He should stay at DH. I would not be surprised to see if Atlanta would inquire about bringing back Jorge Soler again. because although Solaire's defense is not great, it's better than Ozuna's. I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta would perhaps talk to Cody Bellinger, but I feel like Bellinger is going to ask for more money than Atlanta's going to want to pay for a left fielder. So, I'd like to see a solid bat out there in left field. I do not want to see Kevin Pillar come back after his dumbass base running bloop where he did not run in the playoffs, which would have put runners in second and third against Philadelphia with a run in when Acuna came up to bat instead of no runs in and bases loaded with 2 outs. Washington was waving him why he didn't run. Who the hell knows? I also want to see Atlanta. They need to pick up some more starting pitching depth. We do get Oscar Yanoa back this year after Tommy John. We're going to get Ian Anderson back this year after Tommy John. So we have some depth in house. Smith Shawver's back, obviously. A lot of the younger guys are all back, but I would like to see a lot of competition this spring for those rotation spots. I would also not mind seeing some of the organizational depth rebuilt because we have been trading quite a bit of it lately. So, as much as I'd love to see Yamamoto, I don't think Yamamoto is coming to Atlanta. That's a lot more money than they typically spend on starters. But a Jordan Montgomery, I would not be upset with, or one of the lower tier guys coming over from Japan. I wouldn't say no to Blake Snell. I'd be stupid to say no to Blake Snell, despite the fact that he walks a gazillion guys a year. But just imagine that 3 pitchers that are going to go over 200 Ks next year. That would be wild. But no, I don't think Atlanta is going to be a serious interest in Snell. I think it's more likely they make a big trade, someone like Cease or Burns, which I'll use that as a segue. Joe, what are you thinking for some possible trade candidates we should keep an eye out on? You're muted, dude.
Sorry, my bad. The big names you hear a lot about right now, Dylan Cease currently of the White Sox. The most chatter around 2 teams right now is Atlanta and the Dodgers. Juan Soto obviously would probably be traded, I would think. Corbin Burns from the Brewers, Bo Bichette from the Blue Jays, and Pete Alonso from the Mets. There was a ton of talk about Pete Alonso during the season before the trade deadline moving him, and that didn't happen. There's been a ton of talk with the Cubs in particular with Alonso and Bichette lately, and how that would all shake out is kind of anybody's guess at this point what the package would be. Those are the main targets you're hearing a lot of chatter about.
Now, Bichette to the Cubs, he'd be at third. They'd move him to third most likely.
Well, that's likely where he would end up. It sounds like, and then, if they like what they're seeing from Morel at first, then it makes sense. If you're going to keep Morel, if you're going to trade Morel for him, then you're obviously going to have to include 1 or 2 other people there to make that deal work. There's a ton of unknowns with the Cubs. I think more will be clear after the owner meetings next week. So after that, a lot of this will clear up.
You know what wouldn't surprise me? Juan Soto to the Mets. I know the Mets are rebuilding, but Juan Soto doesn't really have a lot to say. He doesn't have a no-trade clause. So the Padres can deal him wherever the hell they want. The Mets have some good prospects coming that are getting ready to come up that the Padres would probably be interested in. Juan Soto wants to come back to the East Coast. He was an NL East guy for years before that he got shipped out west, and it just has not worked out very well for him out west. So I would not be shocked to see Juan Soto get traded back to maybe even for Pete Alonso and some prospects, because I feel like at this point Alonso's honestly, he reminds me more of a guy who needs he's a guy who really needs a new scene around him. It's not a completely burnt bridge at this point, but I think he needs a change of scenery. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I could see that as potential. The thing for Juan Soto is, he basically took that deal or whatever happened there. It's not a ballpark for him to hit well in. He needs a better ballpark, a hitter friendly ballpark, because I mean, if you think about it, before he went to the Padres in that deal, he was with the Nationals, where Nationals Park, the right field area, is a better place to hit than Petco Park. So I could see the Padres dealing him. I don't know about the Mets. Yeah, I don't know where I would put him, but I wouldn't be surprised that he gets moved.
One thing to look at, the Mets did grab Luisangel Acuna last year in their multiple dealings that they did of their old starters. Drew Gilbert's going to be a double-A guy, probably more ready for 25. Same with Jet Williams. He's going to be a double-A guy, more likely 26. Ronnie Mauricio, second base shortstop outfielder, he is probably going to be on the opening day of roster for the Mets if he is not traded before then. So they have guys in their top 30 that are MLB ready or pretty damn close to MLB ready. So I know the Mets are rebuilding, but you still want to have at least one star up at the major league level to attract talent coming in.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to get more talent in, frankly, with Juan Soto than they are with Pete Alonso. I think how Pete acted last year multiple times, I think, has kind of soured people to him a little bit. So definitely want to keep an eye out on Corbin Burns. Send him to Atlanta too. Apparently there's an Atlanta-Milwaukee trading pipeline because we sent Contreras last year as part of the Murphy trade. So, hey, I wouldn't say no to either Dylan Cease or Corbin Burns. And since AA likes to swing those big trades in the offseason, it's definitely something you need to keep an eye on. And just one quick note, because I've been seeing fan boards blow up about this with Atlanta trading away so many guys. Let's look at a lot of guys they traded. Kyle Wright's not going to be available next year because of surgery recovery. Mike Soroka, I love the guy. Will never not love the guy. He's not going to be a quality MLB pitcher ever again. Unfortunately, 2 Achilles injuries in a year and a half. That's what's going to happen. All teams are making trades like this right now. Everybody is trying to empty out their 40-man roster right now to get it down a little bit, because that's how you have flexibility to make these offseason moves that everybody needs to make. Like the Anderson trade, that was for cash. He was going to be DFA'd anyway, but because somebody was willing to pick him up, we got a little cash back for it. People need to stop freaking out. And I see Atlanta's boards more than everybody else because I'm an Atlanta fan, but every team is making trades like that right now, because you cannot put people on the 50 and 60-day IL during the offseason to open up those roster spots. So just just a general, because I know that's just one thing I've noted since the end of the World Series and free agency beginning, the absolute freak out from fan bases about these big trades going through for essentially nothing and guys getting immediately waived. It's to clear money. It's to clear roster spots. It's okay. We're not trying to trade the team. Did you see Austin Riley and Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies get traded? No, you did not. The core is still there. Shut the hell up. That's all I have to say on that. Anyway. All right, guys. So we're really, free agency has not started off as quickly as we were probably predicting it would. I think things are going to start to fall now that the pitchers are starting to go, because let's face it, the pitchers get the big money most of the time. There isn't really, outside of Ohtani, of course, there isn't really a huge name bat that's going to command the kind of money Aaron Nola got, that Sonny Gray got. Somebody might match up with Sonny Gray. Cody Bellinger actually might get that, because I think his 1-year prove-it deal with the Cubs might have shot him up close to that. But it's been a little quiet, but as owner meetings are starting, I think things are really about to pick up. Do you guys have any more wild predictions you want to toss out for the rest of free agency? Joe, you're thinking something. What are you thinking, dude?
I could see. I don't know that I want it to happen in a trade, but I could see Burns leaving or Woodruff going to Chicago, following counsel. Not sure it will happen. It could. I don't know. Truthfully, I'm not sure.
Now, are we talking wild prediction that we think has some possibility, or just like?
No, let's go with some possibility. We talked about our wild wish list with you going after Mike Trout.
I will say, all right, so my prediction is going to actually be Mike Trout does get traded.
It would be wild. I don't see it, man. Too much money, too many injuries, and he has a full no trade clause that he would have to waive. And yes, I know.
You keep acting like the no trade clause means that he can't be traded, but
it makes it significantly harder because you have to send him somewhere he would be willing to go.
All they have to do is ask him, "Hey, we want to trade you here. Do you want to go there?"
Yeah, it doesn't make it that much harder. All it means is you need to find a contender, because if you find the right contender to give you the deal, he's gonna waive it.
Yeah, good luck finding that contender that's got enough prospects available that the Angels will be happy with, and maybe not have to eat a significant chunk of that salary to do. I'm not seeing it, dude.
He's going to be traded. I'm going to call it.
He's not going to get traded. I would be shocked.
But we're talking wild predictions, so I'm going to go there. Mike Trout will be traded. You got to get back to the point at hand here. Wild predictions. Trout will be traded. What's your bold prediction then?
My bold prediction is
probably going to be a top 5 MVP.
My bold prediction is you're going to see 2 or more multi-team trades over the next 2 months. Because you aren't
all trades multi-team.
No, like three or more teams involved, dumbass. Come on. You knew what I meant. You don't usually see a ton of them in the offseason. You usually see them closer to the trade deadline, but I bet we see at least 2, possibly more. All right, there's my wild call. I don't know who it's going to be. It's probably going to be for either Cease or for Burns, but who knows? All right, guys. Well, that's it for us. We might have an episode in December if enough free agents action happens before the end of the year. But if not, this will be the last episode of the year. Hopefully we have one more, because we also could talk about the Hall of Fame stuff as well. We might slip one in the middle of December just for the heck of it.
Possibly a season 3 wrap up here. So
yeah, that'd be fun.
A good season 3 if this ends up being the season finale.
Yeah. Maybe we can convince a couple other guys to hop on just to wrap things up, just to make it fun and holiday and festive and all of that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, you can find audio recordings on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, anywhere else you listen to your podcast at. We're live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter. Merchandise is at redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer. Twitter handles at DDAB_podcast. All 3 of us are still on Twitter, although I will admit I do not use it nearly as much as I used to. I'm at PyroLord314, Jason's at JRicker300, Joe's at JoltonJoe35. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast LLC and sponsored by Whiskey and Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. May your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a good one. We will either see you later in December or we'll see you next year.